Hello, my ghouls and ghosties. Madame Christina here from Wolfgram Memorial Library to share some spooks and scares for Halloween. On October 31st, I see everyone at Widener University staring at their phones. Marvelous, I say, marvelous! I will make something so spooky, so scary, so terrifying. Oh, crap. Yes? It is about the library. No, it's all about library resources. Yeah, that's the whole point. No, it's not just an excuse to dress up a set. There's definitely not a set anywhere. I mean, that would be ridiculous. Yes, I was just about to do that, actually. The powers that be have told me that this presentation is not meant to infringe upon an author's copyright, and that we're promoting the library's digital resources to the Widener community. If you enjoy any of the stories you're about to hear, please go and support the author by reading their books through the Wolfgram Library's website. And now, let the show begin! Welcome, one and all. Tonight, you will be read 3 stories by 3 librarians. Megan the Magical will begin with the Big Book of Pennsylvania Ghost Stories by Mark Nesbitt and Patty A. Wilson, with an encounter in Gettysburg with a Ouija board and bored college students on an autumn night, much like this one.
In 1993, a group of college students was visiting the Gettysburg battlefield around the anniversary of the battle. Some of their friends who lived near Gettysburg thought it would be fun to take them to Devil's Den. On the way, they told them that they could expect to see ghosts, as it was one of the most haunted places on the battlefield. They had purchased 2 of the Ghosts of Gettysburg series of books and had read them just before visiting, so they might have been predisposed to the supernatural. The fact that it was already dark by the time they reached Devil's Den certainly enhanced their already spooked mood. They parked the car in the lot near the infamous slaughter pen, and someone opened the trunk and brought out a Ouija board. One young man went out on his own to explore the labyrinth of boulders, where 13 decades before, almost to the day, close to 8,000 men about his age had risked or given up their lives or futures for a few yards of rock-strewn Pennsylvania real estate. When he returned to the group a few minutes later, they excitedly claimed that they had contacted a dead Union soldier through the Ouija board. The board had spelled out A-I-R-C-K, which they translated as Eric, and he wasn't alone. They asked who was with him in whatever world he was presently occupying. Haltingly, the board spelled out Q-D. First and last initials, perhaps? The Ouija board is never forthcoming. But someone in the group opined that it could be a fond nickname given by the soldier to his companion. They began to call her Cutie. They continued to ask Eric many questions, for which they received a few answers. Many cryptic, some enlightening, many more playful. They can be such pranksters, those of the spirit world. And yet, a darker side is always looming. It was approaching 10 p.m. when the park closed. They decided to say goodbye, via the board, to the seemingly friendly spirits they had contacted. Just before they signed off, one of the young men asked a quick question. Would Eric and QD meet them at their cars in the parking lot? One of the young men, who had had several bad experiences with Ouija boards and spirits, became immediately frightened. The others joked nervously. A couple chastised the one who asked the question. he mocked them. They packed up the board and began to carry it down the stone steps toward the parking lot. The young man who had flippantly asked the spirits to meet them was leading the group along with a young woman. One of the men remembered that he could feel a certain tension in the air as they approached the lot. As he and another woman followed the first couple, the young woman ahead suddenly shrieked. From the darkened parking lot, the young man who had so carelessly summoned the spirit world into this one through the mystical board cried, "Oh my God!" The rest of the group ran down the stairs. The student at the bottom was pointing into the woods across from the parking lot, his mouth automatically repeating, "Do you see them? Do you see them?" Another couple in the parking lot shouted that they could, and began to retreat from the parking lot back into Devil's Den. What they saw defied logic. There, slowly emerging from the woods and approaching Plum Run, where it sloughs through the slaughter pen, was a man, or at least what had the general form and appearance of a man, dressed in blue. He appeared to be wearing what the students would later agree were old-fashioned trousers. Anyone who has seen photographs of Civil War soldiers would call them Union Army issue. He wore a cap, but he had no face, no distinct features of a human being, and emanating from him was a bluish-gray tinge. As he strolled slowly, the young people could discern yet another figure, that of a woman, slowly keeping pace alongside the soldier. Indeed, she was with him in both space and time, for she was quite fashionable in her mid-19th century hooped skirt. The eerie couple moved directly toward the two cars the students had driven to Devil's Den. It seemed as if the spirits were determined to keep the date to meet with those who had contacted them. Suddenly, it became a panicked foot race between the students and the ghostly couple swathed in blue light trying to reach the cars. The students won the bizarre race between those of this world and those of the next. As they sped away into the dark, only one of them had the courage to look back. There he saw frozen, as if disappointed that their rendezvous had been abruptly cancelled, an eerie blue radiance, fading slowly into nothingness.
If you're interested in spirit boards, as we call them in the biz, there are a few steps you will need to take to ensure your safety. While much of this video is fun and games, this is not. So please, pay attention. Never play alone. Ever. Take it seriously. This isn't Ghost Adventures. Show a little bit of respect to the dead. Mind-altering substances should be avoided. It's a bad trip. Do not ask about your future, your death, or the death of anyone that you love. Ever. Never ask for physical proof of anything. No noises, no flickering lights, none of it. Always end the session by saying goodbye. Move the planchette across the goodbye, flip it over, and remove it from the board. Always say goodbye and remove the planchette, or else you have created an open portal that anything can climb in through. These are only the basic rules. But if these three things happen while you are using a spirit board, immediately end your conversation, flip the planchette, and remove it from the board. Figure eights with the planchette. No. Going through the alphabet and the numbers in sequential order again and again and again, no. And moving to the four corners of the board in any order, no. End the conversation, flip the planchette, and remove it from the board. You've been warned. The next tale is a classic from H.P. Lovecraft, a master of horror, and it will be read to you by our beautiful starry knight, Kristen.
It is said that in Ulthar, which lies beyond the river sky, no man may kill a cat. And this I can verily believe as I gaze upon him who sitteth purring before the fire. For the cat is cryptic and close to strange things which men cannot see. He is the soul of antique Egyptus and bearer of tales from forgotten cities in Meroe and Ophir. He is the kin of the jungle's lords and heir to the secrets of Ori and sinister Africa. The Sphinx is his cousin, and he speaks her language, but he is more ancient than the Sphinx and remembers that which she hath forgotten. In Ulthar, before ever the burgesses forbade the killing of cats, there dwelt an old cotter and his wife who delighted to trap and slay the cats of their neighbors. Why they did this, I know not, save that many hate the voice of the cat in the night, and take it ill that cats should run stealthily about yards and gardens at twilight. But whatever the reason, this old man and woman took pleasure in trapping and slaying every cat which came near to their hovel, and from some of the sounds heard after dark, many villagers fancied that the manner of slaying was exceedingly peculiar. But the villagers did not discuss such things with the old man and his wife, because of the habitual expression on the withered faces of the two, and because their cottage was so small and so darkly hidden under spreading oaks at the back of a neglected yard. In truth, much as the owners of cats hated these odd folk, they feared them more, and instead of berating them as brutal assassins, merely took care that no cherished pet or mouser should stray toward the remote hovel under the dark trees. When through some unavoidable oversight a cat was missed and sounds heard after dark, the loser would lament impotently, or console himself by thanking fate that it was not one of his children who had thus vanished. For the people of Ulthar were simple and knew not whence is all cats first came. One day, a caravan of strange wanderers from the south entered the narrowed cobbled streets of Ulthar. Dark wanderers they were, and unlike the other roving folk who passed through the village twice every year. In the marketplace they told fortunes for silver and bought gay beads from the merchants. What was the land of these wanderers none could tell, but it was seen that they were given to strange prayers, and that they had painted on the sides of their wagons strange figures with human bodies and the heads of cats, hawks, rams, and lions. And the leader of the caravan wore a headdress with 2 horns and a curious disc betwixt the horns. There was in this singular caravan a little boy with no father or mother, but only a tiny black kitten to cherish. The plague had not been kind to him, yet had left him this small furry thing to mitigate his sorrow. And when one is very young, one can find great relief in the lively antics of a black kitten. So the boy, whom the dark people called Menace, smiled more often than he wept, as he sat playing with his graceful kitten on the steps of an oddly painted wagon. On the 3rd morning of the wanderer's stay in Ulthar, Menace could not find his kitten. And as he sobbed aloud in the marketplace, certain villagers told him of the old man and his wife, and of sounds heard in the night. And when he heard these things, his sobbing gave place to meditation, and finally to prayer. He stretched out his arms toward the sun and prayed in a tongue no villager could understand, though indeed the villagers did not try very hard to understand, since their attention was mostly taken up by the sky and the odd shapes the clouds were assuming. It was very peculiar, but as the little boy uttered his petition, there seemed to form overhead the shadowy, nebulous figures of exotic things, of hybrid creatures crowned with horn-flanked discs. Nature, is full of such illusions to impress the imaginative. That night, the wanderers left Ulthar and were never seen again. And the householders were troubled when they noticed that in all the village there was not a cat to be found. From each hearth the familiar cat had vanished. Cats large and small, black, gray, striped, yellow, and white. Old Crannon, the burgomaster, swore that the dark folk had taken the cats away in revenge for killing of Menace's kitten, and cursed the caravan and the little boy. But Nith, the lean notary, declared that the old cotter and his wife were more likely persons to suspect, for their hatred of cats was notorious and increasingly bold. Still, no one durst complain to the sinister couple, even when little Atal, the innkeeper's son, vowed that he had at twilight seen all the cats of Ulthar in that accursed yard under the trees, pacing very slowly and solemnly in a circle around the cottage, two abreast, as if in performance of some unheard of rite of beasts. The villagers did not know how much to believe from so small a boy, and though they feared that the evil pair had charmed the cats to their death, they preferred not to chide the old cotter till they met him outside his dark and repellent yard. So Ulthar went to sleep in vain anger, and when the people awakened at dawn, behold, every cat was back at his accustomed hearth. Large and small, black, gray, striped, yellow, and white, none was missing. Very sleek and fat did the cats appear, and sonorous with purring content. The citizens talked with one another of the affair, and marveled not a little. Old Crannon again insisted that it was the dark folk who had taken them, since cats did not return alive from the cottage of the ancient man and his wife. But all agreed on one thing, that the refusal of all cats to eat their portions of meat or drink their saucers of milk was exceedingly curious. And for 2 whole days the sleek, lazy cats of Ulthar would touch no food, but only doze by the fire or in the sun. It was fully a week before the villagers noticed that no lights were appearing at dusk in the windows of the cottage under the trees. Then the lean Nith remarked that no one had seen the old man or his wife since the night the cats were away. In another week, the burgomaster decided to overcome his fears and call at the strangely silent dwelling as a matter of duty, though so doing he was careful to take with him Shang, the blacksmith, and Thule, the cutter of stone, as witnesses. And when they had broken down the frail door, they found only this: 2 cleanly picked human skeletons on the earthen floor, and a number of singular beetles crawling in the shadowy corners. There was subsequently much talk among the burgesses of Ulthar. Zath, the coroner, disputed at length with Nith, the lean notary, and Crannon and Shang and Thule were overwhelmed with questions. Even little Atal, the innkeeper's son, was closely questioned and given a sweetmeat as reward. They talked of the old cotter and his wife, of the caravan of dark wanderers, of small Menace and his black kitten, of the prayer of Menace and of the sky during that prayer, of the doings of the cats on the night the caravan left, and of what was later found in the cottage under the dark trees in the repellent yard. And in the end, the burgesses passed that remarkable law which is told of by traders in Hatheg and discussed by travelers in Nir, namely, that in Ulthar no man may kill a cat.
I just love a happy ending. Stupid humans. We have one final story that is guaranteed to make your pulse race. Our last librarian was having a lovely time at prom when the zombie apocalypse started. Now she is an undead prom queen, reading Song of the Unraveling World by Brian Evenson. No matter which way we turned the girl, she didn't have a face. There was hair in front and hair in the back. Only saying which was the front and which was the back was impossible. I got Jim's slip to look on one side, and I looked from the other, and the other members of the lodge tried to hold her gently, or not so gently, in place. But no matter how we looked or held her, the face just wasn't there. Her mother was screaming, blaming us, but what could we do about it? We're not to blame. There was nothing we could have done. It was Wolfgram who got the idea of calling out to the sky, calling out after the lights as they receded to tell them to come and take her. "You've taken half of her," he shouted. "You've taken the same half of her twice. Now goddamn have the decency to take the rest of her." Some of the others joined in. They didn't come back. None of them. They left, and left us with the girl, who no matter how you looked at her, you saw her from the back. She didn't eat. If she did so in a way that we couldn't see. She just kept turning in circles, walking backward and knocking into things, trying to grab things with the backs of her hands. She was a whole girl made of two half-girls, but wrongly made, of two of the same halves. After a while, we couldn't hardly bear to look at her. In the end, we couldn't think what to do, except leave her. At first, her mother protested and bit and clawed, but in the end, she didn't want to take her either. She just wanted to feel better about letting her go, to have the blame rest on us. We nailed planks across the door and boarded up the windows. At Verl's request, we left the hole in the roof in the hope that they would come back for her. For a while, we posed a sentry outside the door who reported to the lodge on the sound of her scrambling within. But once the noise stopped, we gave that up as well. Late at night, I dreamed of her. Not the doubled half of the girl we had, but the doubled half we didn't. I saw her, miles above us, in air rarefied and thin, not breathable by common means at all, floating within their vessel. There she was, a girl who, no matter how you turned her, always faced you. A girl who bared her teeth and stared and stared.